Most people work hard. Most people stay stuck. That is not an insult, it is an observation. You see it everywhere. Same cities, same education, same tools, same internet, same opportunities. Yet outcomes drift apart over time. One person slowly rises, another stays exactly where they started. Not because they are lazy, not because they lack talent. Something quieter is at work. The difference lives in the mind. This book, The Mental Blueprint of Those Who Rise, is not about hacks. It is not about grinding harder or waking up earlier. It is about how a small group of people, roughly 5%, think differently before they act differently. Their success is a side effect. Their thinking comes first. Most people focus on outcomes: money, status, freedom, recognition. The top 5% focus on frameworks. They care about how decisions are made, how emotions are handled, how time is used, how responsibility is owned. They play a longer game while others chase quick relief. This book matters now because the modern world is loud, attention is fragmented, patience is punished, short-term rewards are everywhere. In this environment, average thinking feels normal, reactive thinking feels justified, but normal thinking produces normal lives, and reactive thinking keeps people trapped in cycles they do not understand. The core message of this book is simple. If you want uncommon results, you need uncommon mental structure. Throughout this journey, you will notice a pattern. People who rise do not rely on motivation. They rely on systems. They do not wait for confidence. They build evidence. They do not complain about reality. They work with it. They do not copy what looks successful. They copy how successful people think when no one is watching. There are a few core themes that repeat across every chapter. First, responsibility creates power. The moment you stop blaming circumstances, you gain leverage. Rising individuals accept uncomfortable truths early because it gives them control. Second, clarity beats effort. Most people are busy, very few are precise. Those who rise remove noise. They choose fewer goals. They say no often. This creates speed without stress. Third, small decisions compound. Success is not explosive, it is accumulative. The top 5% understand that direction matters more than intensity. They focus on daily standards instead of dramatic moves. Fourth, emotional control is a hidden advantage. Pressure exposes thinking patterns. Those who rise do not eliminate fear or stress, they interpret them differently. They respond instead of react. Finally, identity drives behavior. Rising individuals do not ask what they feel like doing, they ask who they are becoming. This identity lens simplifies choices and builds quiet confidence. This audiobook is structured as a guided journey. Each chapter builds on the last. You will move from awareness to structure, from responsibility to clarity, from discipline to patience, from independence to identity. Nothing here requires talent, nothing here requires luck. Everything here requires honesty. As you listen, you may feel uncomfortable at times. That is a good sign. Growth rarely feels reassuring in the moment. You may recognize patterns in your own thinking. You may realize why certain efforts never paid off. You may also see how close you already are to a breakthrough you did not know how to reach. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about removing what keeps you average. So here's the question that frames everything that follows. If success leaves clues, why do so few people follow them? Let us begin with the invisible divide that separates those who rise from those who stay exactly where they are. Chapter 1. The Invisible Divide Between the Average and the Exceptional. Why do two people start at the same place and end up in completely different lives? That question feels uncomfortable because it challenges a comforting belief. The belief that success is mostly about talent, luck, or external opportunity. If that were true, failure would feel safer. You could point outward: circumstances, background, timing. But the truth this chapter introduces is quieter and harder to escape. The biggest divide between average outcomes and exceptional ones is not visible. It is mental. Most people look at successful individuals and focus on what they have: their job, their income, their lifestyle, their confidence. What they rarely study is how those people think before they act, what questions they ask, what assumptions they reject, what decisions they make when no one is watching. The book opens by dismantling a popular myth. that successful people are fundamentally different at birth, smarter, more gifted, more driven. In reality, many began with the same resources, same education, same environment. What separated them was not intensity, it was interpretation. Average thinkers react to life. Exceptional thinkers interpret life. This difference shows up early, often in subtle ways. When something goes wrong, the average mind asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The rising mind asks, "What does this teach me?" When an opportunity appears, the average mind asks, "What if I fail?" The rising mind asks, "What if I wait and regret it?" When effort feels uncomfortable, the average mind looks for relief. The rising mind looks for meaning. These are not dramatic moments, they are daily micro-decisions, and those micro-decisions quietly compound into massive differences over time. The book describes this divide as invisible because both people may appear equally busy. Both may work long hours, both may struggle, but one is building leverage while the other is burning energy. One is refining judgment, the other is repeating patterns. A powerful idea introduced here is that copying results without understanding thinking is a trap. People try to mimic surface behaviors, wake up early, hustle harder, follow routines, but without the underlying mental framework, these actions collapse under pressure. Discipline fades, motivation drops, burnout appears. Those who rise do not copy habits, they copy principles. They understand why they do what they do. That understanding gives them flexibility. When circumstances change, they adapt instead of panic. The book offers a simple analogy. Imagine two people playing the same game. One understands the rules, the other only imitates moves. At first, they may look similar. Over time, the one who understands the rules begins to win consistently, not because they try harder, because they see the board differently. This is the invisible divide. Another core insight is that average thinking is socially reinforced. Complaining feels normal. Seeking comfort feels justified. Avoiding responsibility feels reasonable. Most people around you think this way. That makes it feel safe. But safety is not progress. Exceptional thinking often feels lonely early on. It requires saying no when others say yes. It requires patience when others seek speed. It requires restraint when others seek validation. The book emphasizes that rising individuals are not immune to fear or doubt. They simply do not let those emotions vote on decisions. They treat emotions as signals, not commands. This distinction matters. Average thinkers feel something and act on it. Exceptional thinkers feel something and question it. That pause creates space. In that space, better decisions are made. The chapter also challenges the idea that effort alone leads to success. Effort without direction creates exhaustion. Effort without reflection creates repetition. Effort without ownership creates frustration. Those who rise constantly refine their thinking. They ask, is this working? Is this aligned? Is this moving me closer or just keeping me busy? Most people avoid these questions because the answers require change. The invisible divide grows wider over time because thinking shapes standards. Average thinkers tolerate small inefficiencies, small excuses, small inconsistencies. Rising thinkers treat small lapses seriously, not because they are perfectionists, because they understand trajectory. A plane that is off course by 1 degree does not crash immediately. It lands in the wrong city hours later. Thinking works the same way. This is why two lives that look identical at 25 look radically different at 45. The book makes a bold but grounded claim. You do not need more motivation. You need better mental filters. What you allow into your mind, what you tolerate in your behavior, what explanations you accept, these filters decide your future long before results appear. The most dangerous thing about average thinking is that it feels logical in the moment. Skipping reflection feels efficient. Avoiding discomfort feels healthy. Blaming circumstances feels fair. But these choices trade long-term growth for short-term relief. Those who rise accept short-term discomfort to protect long-term freedom. That trade-off defines the invisible divide. Toward the end of the chapter, the author invites a quiet self-audit, not asking if you work hard, asking how you think when effort is not rewarded, asking how you respond when progress feels slow, asking whether your default reactions move you forward or keep you stable. The key takeaway of this chapter is simple. Success begins with perception, not action. If you see the world the same way as everyone else, you will live the same way as everyone else. The next chapter takes this awareness and turns it into structure, because seeing the divide is not enough. You need a system that supports better thinking when emotions try to pull you back. In the next chapter, we explore the internal operating system of those who rise.
Chapter 2: The Internal Operating System. If effort alone created success, most people would already have the life they want. They work hard, they try again, they push through, yet the results remain inconsistent. This chapter explains why. Rising individuals do not rely on effort, they rely on structure. Every person operates on an internal system, a mental operating system that runs in the background. It decides how you react to stress, how you make decisions under pressure, how you behave when motivation disappears. Most people never design this system, they inherit it. They absorb habits from parents, beliefs from culture, reactions from peers. Then they run on this default software for decades. When life becomes difficult, the system reveals its limits. Those who rise take a different approach. They build their internal operating system deliberately. This system is not about being emotionless. It is about reducing friction. It removes unnecessary decision-making. It protects energy. It turns good behavior into defaults rather than daily battles. The book introduces a powerful idea early in this chapter. Willpower is unreliable. Systems are not. Average thinkers wake up each day negotiating with themselves. Should I work today? Should I delay? Should I push? These negotiations drain mental energy. By midday, decision fatigue sets in. Consistency collapses. Rising thinkers remove negotiation. They decide once and automate the rest. They create routines that carry them forward even when they feel tired, bored, or discouraged. This is why discipline feels lighter to them, not because they enjoy discomfort, because they reduced the need to choose. Think of it like this. If every time you drove a car you had to decide which pedal accelerates and which brakes, driving would be exhausting. Once the system is learned, movement becomes automatic. Mental systems work the same way. The chapter explains that emotions are part of the system, not the driver. Most people let emotions control behavior. If they feel confident, they act. If they feel uncertain, they stop. This creates inconsistency. Rising individuals treat emotions as data. Stress signals importance. Fear signals growth. Boredom signals repetition. None of these decide action, they inform it. This distinction allows them to act steadily, while others swing between intensity and withdrawal. Another key element of the internal operating system is long-term orientation. Average thinking prioritizes immediate relief. Rising thinking prioritizes future leverage. This shows up in small ways. Choosing to prepare instead of procrastinate, choosing to invest time instead of consume entertainment, choosing discomfort now instead of regret later. These choices are not heroic, they are habitual. The chapter uses a simple but effective metaphor: mental software. If your mental software rewards comfort, you will avoid challenge. If it rewards growth, you will tolerate discomfort. The outcome depends on what the system reinforces. Rising individuals program their system to reward consistency over excitement. They do not chase motivation, they expect resistance. Their system accounts for it. Another important idea here is default behavior. Under pressure, people do not rise to their goals, they fall to their systems. When stress hits, when life disrupts plans, your true system shows up. This is why motivation fails during hard times, but systems endure. The book highlights how high performers across fields rely on this principle. Athletes train routines so deeply that performance emerges even under pressure. Leaders rely on frameworks to make decisions when information is incomplete. Writers sit down at the same time regardless of inspiration. They do not wait to feel ready. They show up because the system says so. This chapter also addresses a common misunderstanding. Systems are not rigid, they are freeing. By removing decision fatigue, systems create mental space for creativity, strategy, and reflection. Rising individuals think better because they are not constantly fighting themselves. The chapter challenges the listener to examine their own internal software. Do your habits support the person you want to become, or do they protect the person you already are? Do your routines reduce friction or create it? Do your defaults move you forward or keep you comfortable? The key takeaway of this chapter is clear. Winners design their thinking once so they do not fight themselves daily. In the next chapter, the book introduces the foundation that makes all systems effective: responsibility, because no system works if you refuse to own your reality.
Chapter 3: Radical Ownership of Reality. There is a strange comfort in believing that life happens to you. It removes responsibility. It softens disappointment. It gives you someone or something to blame. Circumstances, other people, timing, the system. But this comfort comes at a cost: power. This chapter makes a direct and uncomfortable claim. You cannot rise while avoiding responsibility. Those who rise accept ownership early, not because it feels good, because it works. Radical ownership does not mean blaming yourself for everything. It means recognizing where your influence begins. It means refusing to outsource your future to explanations that keep you passive. Average thinkers ask, whose fault is this? Rising thinkers ask, what is my move? That shift changes everything. The chapter explains why blame is so attractive. It protects identity. If something fails and it is not your fault, your self-image remains intact, but your situation remains unchanged. Ownership does the opposite. It hurts the ego but empowers the individual. The moment you say, "This is on me," options appear. You can adjust, you can learn, you can choose differently next time. Blame offers relief. Ownership offers leverage. The book introduces the idea of control versus influence. Most people focus on what they cannot control: economic conditions, other people's behavior, past mistakes. This focus creates frustration and paralysis. Rising individuals focus on influence. What can I do today? What skill can I build? What decision can I improve? What standard can I raise? Influence compounds. Control does not. This chapter highlights a critical psychological insight. Responsibility reduces anxiety over time. At first, ownership feels heavy. It creates pressure. But over time, it creates clarity. When you stop blaming, you stop arguing with reality. Energy that was wasted on frustration becomes available for progress. The book offers a powerful contrast. Two people face the same failure. One says, "This should not have happened." The other says, "This happened, now what?" Only one moves forward. Radical ownership also sharpens decision-making. When you know you will own the outcome, you think more carefully. You stop making casual promises. You stop tolerating weak standards. You stop hoping things work out. You build a stronger relationship with cause and effect. The chapter also addresses a common fear. If I take responsibility, am I being too hard on myself? The answer given is precise. Ownership is not self-punishment. It is self-respect. It means believing that your actions matter, that your choices carry weight, that you are not a spectator in your own life. Those who rise do not expect fairness. They expect causality. This expectation changes how they approach obstacles. Instead of asking, "Why me?" they ask, "How do I adapt?" Instead of waiting for permission, they create options. Instead of resenting constraints, they work within them. The chapter explains why excuses are dangerous even when they are true.
An excuse can be accurate and still be destructive. Yes, the situation may be unfair. Yes, resources may be limited. Yes, others may have advantages. None of that changes what you must do next. Rising individuals acknowledge reality without negotiating with it. They do not deny hardship. They do not dramatize it either. They ask one question consistently: what is within my influence right now? This mindset creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence fuels better decisions. The chapter also connects ownership to identity. When you own outcomes, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance. You start seeing yourself as a problem solver. This identity shift changes behavior without forcing it. You begin to act differently because you see yourself differently. The key takeaway of this chapter is clear and sharp. You gain power the moment you stop negotiating with reality. In the next chapter, the book explains how ownership without clarity leads to wasted effort. Responsibility creates strength. Clarity gives it direction.
Chapter 4: Clarity is the real superpower. Most people are busy. Very few are clear. This chapter begins with a simple observation. Effort without clarity does not create progress. It creates motion. And motion can be deceptive. You feel productive while staying in the same place. Those who rise protect clarity like an asset. They understand that knowing what matters eliminates confusion. Confusion drains energy. Clarity concentrates it. The book explains that lack of clarity is not accidental. It is often self-inflicted. People avoid clarity because clarity forces trade-offs. If you are clear about what you want, you must accept what you are willing to ignore. That feels uncomfortable, so most people stay vague. They say they want success, but they do not define what success means. They say they want growth, but they do not choose a direction. Vagueness feels safe. Clarity feels demanding. Rising individuals choose demanding. This chapter introduces the idea of signal versus noise. Noise is everything that feels urgent but is not important. Notifications, opinions, trends, comparison, endless input. Noise fills time but empties focus. Signal is what actually moves the needle. A small number of priorities, a few meaningful goals, clear standards for progress. Those who rise learn to filter aggressively. They ask different questions. Is this aligned with where I am going? Is this necessary or just distracting? Is this the best use of my attention right now? Most people never ask these questions. They respond to whatever is loudest. Clarity also changes how decisions feel. When direction is clear, decisions become easier. You stop debating endlessly. You measure choices against your direction. If it moves you closer, you consider it. If it does not, you decline. This is why the top 5% say no more than yes. They are not arrogant, they are selective. Every yes costs attention. Every commitment creates obligation. Rising individuals protect their time because they understand its compounding value. The book uses a simple analogy. Imagine using a navigation system with a blurred destination. You can drive all day and feel busy, but you will not arrive anywhere meaningful. A clear destination removes wasted movement. Clarity works the same way in life. Another important idea in this chapter is mental minimalism. Rising individuals simplify their thinking environment. They reduce inputs, they limit commitments, they avoid unnecessary complexity. This is not about doing less for the sake of comfort. It is about doing less to do what matters better. The book highlights how clarity reduces emotional friction. When you know what matters, distractions lose their power, comparison weakens, anxiety decreases. You stop chasing what looks impressive and focus on what is effective. Clarity also exposes illusion. You realize how much effort was spent avoiding decisions rather than making them, how much time was spent reacting instead of choosing. This realization can feel uncomfortable. It is also freeing.
The chapter challenges the listener to perform a clarity audit. What are you optimizing for right now? What do you say you want, and what do your actions actually support? Where are you busy but directionless? Clarity is not a one-time event, it is a practice. Rising individuals revisit their priorities regularly. They adjust, they refine, they remove what no longer fits. They understand that clarity today prevents regret tomorrow. The key takeaway of this chapter is direct. Clarity removes friction from effort. When you know where you are going, energy stops leaking into confusion. In the next chapter, the book shows how clarity alone is not enough. Direction matters, but consistency determines who arrives.
Chapter 5. The Compounding Effect of Small Decisions. Most people overestimate what they can change in a week and underestimate what they can change in 5 years. This chapter shifts the focus from intensity to trajectory, from dramatic effort to quiet accumulation. Those who rise understand a principle that average thinking ignores. Direction matters more than speed. You do not need explosive momentum. You need correct alignment repeated over time. The book explains why small decisions carry more weight than big moments. Big moments are rare. Small decisions happen daily. What you do once may impress. What you repeat defines you. Rising individuals focus on standards, not goals. Goals are outcomes. Standards are behaviors. Goals motivate temporarily. Standards shape identity. Instead of saying, "I want to be successful," they decide how a successful person behaves daily, how they prepare, how they respond to setbacks, how they manage energy. This approach removes pressure. You stop chasing distant results and start honoring daily commitments. The chapter introduces the mathematics of compounding in human behavior. A 1% improvement feels meaningless today. Over years, it becomes transformational. A 1% decline feels harmless today. Over time, it becomes destructive. The danger is that early results are invisible. Most people quit because progress feels slow. Rising individuals continue because they understand the delay. The book describes this phase as the invisible accumulation period. Effort goes in, results lag behind. Doubt appears. This is where most people abandon the process, not because it does not work, because it has not paid off yet. Those who rise trust the process because they understand how compounding works. The chapter gives practical examples. In health, small daily habits shape long-term vitality. In finances, consistent saving beats sporadic income spikes. In skills, regular practice beats bursts of enthusiasm. No single action changes everything. Repetition does. Another key insight is that discipline beats intensity. Intensity burns energy. Discipline preserves it. Rising individuals do not rely on emotional peaks. They rely on repeatable actions. This makes progress boring to observe, but powerful to experience. The book emphasizes that boredom is not a problem. It is a signal of consistency. If your process feels boring, it means it is stable. Stability is what allows compounding to work. The chapter also addresses why people chase shortcuts. Shortcuts promise speed without patience. They appeal to frustration, but shortcuts bypass the learning that builds resilience. Without that learning, success collapses under pressure. Rising individuals avoid shortcuts not because they are moral, because shortcuts break compounding. Another important idea here is lagging indicators. Results always lag behind behavior. When you judge progress only by outcomes, you quit too early. Rising individuals track behaviors instead. Did I show up? Did I follow my standard? Did I execute my system? This keeps them consistent even when results are delayed. The chapter invites a mindset shift. Stop asking, "Is this working yet?" Start asking, "Is this the right direction?"
If the direction is right, time becomes an ally. The key takeaway of this chapter is simple. You do not rise suddenly. You compound quietly. In the next chapter, the book explores the skill that protects compounding from impatience, the ability to wait, to delay gratification, to tolerate uncertainty.
Chapter 6: Mastery of Time and Delay. Impatience destroys more potential than failure ever will. This chapter explains why the ability to wait separates those who rise from those who stall. In a world built for instant feedback, patience has become rare. That rarity makes it powerful. Most people want progress without delay. They want results without accumulation. They want clarity without confusion. When these do not arrive quickly, they assume something is wrong. Rising individuals expect delay. They understand that meaningful progress always lags behind effort. This understanding changes how they experience time. The book introduces delayed gratification as a mental skill, not a personality trait. Anyone can train it. Few choose to. Delayed gratification is the willingness to endure short-term discomfort for long-term gain. It is choosing preparation over praise, investment over consumption, building over broadcasting. This skill shows up everywhere. In careers, it means developing rare skills before demanding recognition. In finances, it means saving before spending. In personal growth, it means practicing in private before performing in public. The chapter contrasts two mindsets. The consumption mindset seeks relief. The investment mindset seeks leverage. Consumption feels good now and costs later. Investment feels uncomfortable now and pays later. Rising individuals default to investment. They also understand the emotional cost of waiting. Waiting creates doubt. Silence creates uncertainty. Slow progress creates temptation. The mind fills gaps with fear. Most people escape these feelings by switching paths. Rising individuals stay. They interpret waiting as proof that they are in the process, not evidence that the process is failing. Another key insight in this chapter is time perspective. Average thinking is short-term. What feels good today? What reduces stress now? What avoids discomfort? Rising thinking is long-term. What builds freedom? What compounds? What matters 5 years from now? This does not mean ignoring the present. It means using the present strategically. The chapter highlights how patience creates unfair advantages. When others quit early, competition disappears. When others chase trends, stable paths become uncrowded. When others seek speed, slow mastery becomes rare. Patience allows rising individuals to outlast and outlearn. The book also explains why impatience feels logical. Modern environments reward speed. Notifications train reactivity. Social comparison creates pressure. These forces condition people to expect immediate feedback. Rising individuals consciously resist this conditioning. They limit inputs. They slow decisions. They create space for thinking. They understand that reacting quickly is not the same as acting wisely. The chapter encourages a reframe. Waiting is not wasting time. Waiting is allowing time to work. Compounding needs time. Learning needs repetition. Trust needs consistency. None of these can be rushed. The key takeaway of this chapter is precise. Those who rise learn to wait longer than others. In the next chapter, the book examines another rare skill, independent thinking, because patience without independent judgment still leads to average paths.
Chapter 7: Independent Thinking in a Crowd. If most people are doing something, the odds are high that it leads to average results. This chapter explores a difficult truth. Following the crowd feels safe, but safety rarely produces growth. Those who rise think independently, even when it feels uncomfortable. Independent thinking does not mean rejecting others automatically. It means questioning assumptions before accepting them. Most people outsource thinking. They adopt opinions. They follow trends. They copy popular paths. This reduces uncertainty, but also reduces originality. Rising individuals do the opposite. They think from first principles. They ask why something works before asking how to copy it. They care more about understanding than imitation. The chapter explains why herd mentality is so powerful. Humans are social. Belonging feels protective. Agreement reduces anxiety. When many people believe something, it feels true. But popularity is not accuracy. Crowds optimize for comfort, not outcomes. This is why popular career paths become crowded. Popular investments become overpriced. Popular ideas lose edge. Rising individuals notice this pattern. They're willing to look wrong early in order to be right later. The book gives historical and modern examples of people who stood apart before their ideas became obvious. They were not reckless. They were patient and informed. Independent thinking requires two skills. The first is filtering information. Not all information deserves equal attention. Rising individuals limit inputs. They choose sources carefully. They avoid constant opinion exposure. This protects mental clarity. The second skill is self-trust. Independent thinking feels lonely. There is no immediate validation. Doubt appears. Rising individuals build self-trust through preparation and evidence. They do the work quietly before expecting results publicly. The chapter also explains why most people mistake confidence for competence. Loud opinions feel convincing. Calm reasoning feels boring. Crowds often follow volume instead of depth. Rising individuals reverse this. They value depth over noise. They ask what is actually true, not what sounds impressive. Another important insight is timing. Independent thinkers often appear slow. They observe, they wait, they gather understanding. When they act, it looks sudden to outsiders. In reality, it is the result of long internal processing. The chapter challenges a common fear. What if independent thinking leads to mistakes? The book answers clearly. Mistakes made independently teach faster than mistakes made by copying. When you think for yourself, feedback is meaningful. When you imitate, failure feels confusing. Rising individuals prefer clarity over comfort. They accept social friction in exchange for strategic advantage. The key takeaway of this chapter is direct. The crowd feels safe. Growth rarely happens there. In the next chapter, the book explores what happens when independent thinkers face pressure. Emotional control becomes essential because clarity without emotional regulation collapses under stress.
Chapter 8. Emotional Control Under Pressure. Pressure does not create character. It reveals it. This chapter explains why emotional control is one of the most underestimated advantages of those who rise. Talent opens doors. Discipline builds progress, but emotional mastery determines who survives long enough to win. Most people believe emotions must disappear before good decisions can happen. That belief is false. Rising individuals feel fear, stress, doubt, and frustration like everyone else. The difference is not absence of emotion, it is relationship with emotion. Average thinkers obey emotions. Rising thinkers observe them. This single shift changes outcomes under pressure. The chapter introduces a critical idea. Emotions are information, not instructions. Stress signals importance. Fear signals uncertainty. Anger signals perceived injustice. These signals exist to inform awareness, not dictate behavior. When emotions control actions, decisions become reactive. When emotions are processed, decisions become strategic. The book explains how pressure compresses thinking. Under stress, the mind seeks relief. It wants the fastest escape from discomfort. This leads to poor decisions. Quitting early, reacting impulsively, overcorrecting emotionally. Rising individuals slow down under pressure. They create a pause between feeling and action. That pause is where control lives. This ability does not come from willpower, it comes from mental training. Rising individuals expect emotional turbulence. Their internal system accounts for it. They plan for stress instead of being surprised by it. The chapter highlights a common mistake. Trying to eliminate emotions makes them stronger. Suppression builds tension. Awareness reduces it. Rising individuals label emotions. They name them. This simple act creates distance. You stop being the emotion and start observing it. Another key insight is emotional stamina. Success is rarely about peak performance. It is about sustained performance. Emotional stamina allows individuals to remain steady over long periods of uncertainty. Those who rise do not panic during slow phases. They do not celebrate excessively during wins. They maintain equilibrium. This steadiness compounds trust. People trust those who remain calm under pressure. Opportunities follow emotional reliability. The chapter also discusses failure. Failure triggers emotion, shame, embarrassment, fear. Average thinkers avoid these emotions by avoiding challenge. Rising individuals accept them as part of growth. They fail without self-destruction. They analyze without self-attack. This allows learning without identity damage. The book emphasizes that emotional control does not mean emotional coldness. Rising individuals feel deeply. They simply do not let feelings hijack direction. They care without collapsing. They stay composed without becoming detached. The chapter challenges the listener to reflect. When emotions rise, do you react or respond? Do you seek relief or understanding? Do emotions decide your future or inform it? The key takeaway of this chapter is clear. Control your emotions or they will control your future. In the next chapter, the book explores what happens when emotional control stabilizes the mind. A quieter form of confidence emerges, one that does not seek approval.
Chapter 9. Quiet Confidence and Internal Validation. Most confidence you see is loud because it is borrowed. This chapter explains a subtle but powerful distinction. External confidence seeks approval. Internal confidence seeks alignment. Those who rise stop outsourcing self-worth. Average thinkers measure themselves through reactions, likes, praise, recognition, comparison. This creates emotional volatility. When approval rises, confidence rises. When approval disappears, confidence collapses. Rising individuals build an internal scorecard. They measure themselves by standards they control. Did I follow my process? Did I act with integrity? Did I improve my judgment? Did I keep my word to myself? This creates stability. Quiet confidence does not announce itself. It does not need validation. It grows from proof. The chapter explains how proof is built. By doing difficult things consistently, by keeping promises privately, by acting correctly even when no one notices. Each small act of self-trust deposits confidence. Over time, this creates unshakable belief. This confidence feels calm, not aggressive. Rising individuals do not need to prove themselves in conversations. They do not rush to speak. They do not exaggerate. They listen more than they perform. Silence becomes strength. The book highlights a dangerous trap. Chasing validation trains dependence. When your confidence depends on others, your behavior becomes performative. You choose what looks good instead of what works. This erodes long-term progress. Rising individuals choose substance over appearance. They let results speak later. They focus on preparation now. Another key insight in this chapter is comparison. Comparison steals clarity. It shifts focus outward. Rising individuals compare themselves to past versions of themselves. This keeps progress grounded and personal. They compete with yesterday, not with everyone. The chapter challenges the listener to ask a direct question. If no one could see your effort, would you still do the work? If the answer is yes, internal validation is forming. The key takeaway of this chapter is precise. Real confidence does not need an audience. In the next chapter, the book completes the blueprint, because when confidence becomes internal, identity begins to shift.
Chapter 10. Becoming the Type of Person Who Rises.
This chapter moves beyond tactics. It focuses on identity. Outcomes follow identity. Behavior follows self-image. Those who rise do not ask, "What should I do?" They ask, "Who must I become?" This shift simplifies life. When identity is clear, decisions align naturally. Rising individuals adopt non-negotiable standards, not goals that expire, standards that define behavior. They do not rely on mood, they act from character. The book explains that identity-based action removes friction. You do not debate whether to act, you act because that is who you are becoming. A person who values excellence prepares. A person who values growth practices. A person who values integrity follows through. No motivation required. This chapter also addresses the cost of becoming different. Identity change creates distance. Some relationships shift, some comforts disappear. Rising individuals accept this cost because the alternative is stagnation. They choose long-term self-respect over short-term belonging. Another key idea is consistency of character. Success is not built by dramatic moments, it is built by repeated alignment between values and actions. This alignment creates trust with yourself and with others. The chapter emphasizes patience again. Identity does not change overnight. It forms through evidence, through repetition, through lived experience. You become what you repeatedly do when no one is watching. The key takeaway of this chapter is foundational. You do not chase success, you embody it. Conclusion: the mental blueprint in real life. This book is not about becoming extraordinary overnight. It is about removing what keeps you average. The mental blueprint of those who rise is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not chase attention. It compounds beneath the surface. Throughout this journey, a pattern emerged. Responsibility creates power. Systems create consistency. Clarity creates direction. Small decisions compound. Patience creates leverage. Independent thinking creates advantage. Emotional control creates stability. Internal validation creates confidence. Identity creates alignment. Most people will hear these ideas and do nothing, not because they are wrong, because they are demanding. They require honesty. They require patience. They require long-term thinking in a short-term world. Those who rise are not special. They are intentional. They design how they think. They choose what they tolerate. They decide who they are becoming. Here are a few principles you can apply immediately. Design your internal system. Remove daily negotiations. Create defaults that support growth. Take full responsibility. Stop arguing with reality. Focus on influence. Protect clarity. Choose fewer priorities. Say no without guilt. Commit to consistency. Track behaviors, not outcomes. Think independently. Question popular paths. Build understanding. Control emotions. Respond instead of react. Build confidence internally. Keep promises to yourself. Act from identity. Become the person who earns the life you want. The question that remains is simple but uncomfortable. If you know how those who rise think, will you choose to think differently when it feels lonely, slow, and unrewarded? Because that choice, repeated daily, is where rising begins.